Hello and welcome back to the Hibs Observer with myself, Liam Bryce and Patrick McPartlin. Sorry, that was a good start. Just some instant reaction to a frantic Edinburgh derby. Hibs won, Hearts won. Patrick, pretty familiar story. It feels like we're just repeating the same talking points week after week with Hibs. Plenty of chances, most of them not taken, and then a late goal conceded. It's Groundhog Day for Hibs at the moment, isn't it?
It is, and I think the worst part is almost that inevitability. That Hibs had a lot of chances. Dwight Gale himself had 3. There were other chances when it was still, I think, 0-0. Other chances when it was 1-0. And you just sort of thought, the longer this goes on, the more kind of confidence Hearts can take from that. And we've seen Hibs in the last sort of 5-10 minutes of games. 86 minutes on the clock. It's a long throw, and it's just there is an inevitability about it. It's another late goal lost from a winning position. It's a game that they probably should have won. I think before the game, a draw would have been like a safe assumption if you were trying to predict the scoreline. I think a 1-1 would be, given how the teams have been recently, I think, that would make sense. But I think the annoying thing for David Gray, I think, will just be that it did seem, that Hibs were on top for periods of this game. And if they just could have taken one or more of those chances just to give them a bit of a cushion, then it might be a different outcome. But instead, as you say, we're talking about another story of Hibs being in front and then, not really doing the basics. It's the goal is simply a case of James Wilson getting,
Get to
sort of
first,
exactly. And it is the basics, and it's what David Gray's been saying that they need to get right. You should be goal side of your man. You should just be getting a foot to that. There was a wee bit of a nick off Nectar Triantis when the ball came in, but even so, you should be just getting something on it, clearing it out of there. And I think David Gray will be happy with what he saw for large parts of the game. But again, we could have said that last week. We could have probably said it the game before that as well. So again, as you say, familiar story. Some good passages to play, but ultimately it's a results-driven business, and Hibs didn't get the result they wanted.
Yeah, can't buy one at the moment, unfortunately. Actually, I kind of put in the match report that it's getting to the stage where we can maybe just copy and paste the previous week's talking points and put them into the latest match report and just gamble that nobody's going to notice, because it was, it's a strange one because it's, I think these games generally end in draws. There's a lot of draws in the Edinburgh derby. In isolation, a draw is not a terrible result, but it's the context of it. I think on a preview show, Matty sort of alluded to this, that you'd think that if it's Hibs coming from behind to get themselves a draw, you would think the whole sort of narrative around the result is completely different. But because it's Hearts, Hibs again throwing it away from a kind of a winning position, a position where they could have been 2 or 3 up without being sparkling going forward. I think they did create enough chances where you could justifiably say, well, if it was 2 or 3-0, it wouldn't have felt unjust.
Craig Gordon does have a number of good saves that probably kept Hearts in it, and
some of them were just straight up.
Exactly, yeah. I was going to say that. Dwight Gale, that I think at least 2 of his 3 efforts where it was just sort of, you're not really making the goalkeeper work. And a goalkeeper like Craig Gordon, we know what he's capable of, we know what he can do, we know what he can, pull out the bag. But I think you would want to be testing the goalkeeper more than they did. I can practically hear David Gray just now saying that the main thing is they're getting into those positions, but that again has kind of been the story of Hibs season. You look at how many goals they've scored compared to the rest of the league, and it's not great. And it's just about taking chances, and it's just, you can do everything right. You can get the balls into the box. You can put it on a sixpence for your centre forwards. You can hit the back post, front post, whatever. But if you're not getting them on target, if you're not getting them in the goal, then it's ultimately you're not really doing the basics. And it's the basics in both boxes which is letting Hibs down.
Yeah.
And I think we said beforehand, or I think you said beforehand, it was essentially a must not lose game rather than a must win. But you just think, as you say, if it had been Hibs coming from behind, it would have been a totally different feeling for a draw. As it is, to be leading and then to have an 86-minute goal go against you, it just feels very, deja vu. It's just the best phrase for it.
It's kind of, we could be here all day trying to find reasons for it. And we keep talking about a team that are not doing the basics well, but then I don't feel that I'm watching a side that aren't committed. And at the same time, I feel like there's no lack of effort and there's no lack of
Yeah,
willingness for them to try
they're
and get it
not.
right. Because I think you've seen the scenes, the celebration for the opener. I mean, it's it was bedlam over in that corner. Obviously, the fans contribute to that as well. But it's clearly a team that are putting in work for each other.
Yeah.
There's just something not quite
clicking.
right, not clicking. Whether it's a psychological thing, I mean, because you can again. We can talk about individual mistakes, individual errors. Obviously, nobody does that on purpose, but even kind of putting. I feel at times they did put bodies on the line today, but they're finding ways to make these mistakes even within that, and I think it's a concern. And I don't know.
I mean, that's been the Motherwell game, the Dundee United game, the Rangers game. Hibs are not playing badly. Like there is some good stuff in there, but it's just. You talk about confidence there. I think it's just having that little bit of belief and just sort of thinking, we can do this rather than which kind of seems to be the sort of the lingering feeling, the lingering kind of emotion.
The clock goes past a certain time of the game, doesn't it?
Exactly, and I mean, I think there were a couple of positives to take from this game. A first start for Dwight Gale, who obviously he led the line well. As we say, 3 chances. He probably should have put at least 1, if not 2 of them. Either, if not in the net, at least making Craig Gordon work harder for them. Junior Hoylett in that sort of 10 position, really good game from him and brilliant ball in for what turned out to be Mikola Kurevich's goal. Ellie Yuan as well, his first start since only since St Johnstone, but we've not seen a lot of him this season so far. But I mean, there's been a lot of debate about whether he would be, whether he's sort of mentally sort of still doing the business, and I think today we saw
he looked up for it.
I think we saw someone who was maybe trying to prove a few people wrong today.
Yeah, I think his performance is maybe what you'd expect from somebody who hasn't played a lot of football. There was good bits and bad bits, the odd kind of sloppy moment, but again, he looked up for it, and I think that's the accusation that's been levelled at. I think it's a very harsh accusation, and it's maybe something. I think there may be an element of maybe the context of the summer and the fact that it was quite well known that he was keen to explore other options. I think then it can be difficult for a player to come back in after that. But I mean, again, if he can build on that, he's shown that he's still got a lot to contribute here for Hibs, because they're going to need players like Yuan. It's getting into this really kind of sticky period is the right word, but that kind of run up to
the whole period.
The whole season has been sticky so far. With no period about it. It's just been one big sticky patch. But I mean, before we finish up, we'll obviously have a sort of fuller reaction breakdown of the game tomorrow. They have brought
the lawnmowers out. That's the sign, isn't it? Yeah.
So that is a sign for us to wrap this up quickly, but. Just quickly to touch on big midweek game coming up Ross County. It's really significant that now, isn't it?
It is, and I feel it could go one of 2 ways. It could be that Hibs sort of take the good bits from their performance today and sort of build on that. Obviously, Ross County have had like an extra day to kind of prepare for that game, if you like. And I think historically Hibs have not fared particularly well. Going up to Dingle in midweek. So there's a wee narrative to change there, but I think. I would imagine that the message from David Gray when they'll be doing their match analysis and everything. I think they will be saying, you take the good bits from the performance against Hearts, you build on that, and I mean it does. I feel like we say this a lot, but it does feel like eventually it is going to come together, and Hibs are going to sort of beat somebody by 4 or 5 goals. But it's just how long is it going to go on that they are going to threaten to do that without actually doing it?
Yeah, and then. Doing it once and then doing it consistently.
Exactly. And just to point out, I'm not predicting a sort of 4 or 5 goal win for Hibs on Wednesday night. Absolutely not. But I think there was, again, we've said this a lot. I think there were a lot of positives to take from this performance today, and I think the key now is if they can build on that on Wednesday night, and then ideally 3 points for obvious reasons. But I think again, it's just a kind of must not lose. And then back here next weekend, and that's where you can sort of hopefully try and get that 3 points, and then it becomes, what looked like a tricky week at the start of it actually becomes one that's, that's been dealt with fairly successfully, and then that's something to build on. But a lot depends on the performance on Wednesday night.
A lot of ifs and buts, as always. We're going to leave it there for now, folks. We're about to jump down to the press conference, so do stay tuned to our social channels to get the latest from that. We speak to David Gray and a bit of follow-up for one of the first team players for the start of next week. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Cheers.
Cheers.